If somebody makes decisions based off of how the group makes decisions, that is not an outbound salesperson and probably not an inbound salesperson. Leaving Grubhub to come to mind was, I want to work with somebody that assumes the best intent in me, and I will assume the best intent in you.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the 5 to 50 Million Show with Devyn Gillespie. Thank you to our sponsor, Main Street Growth Partners, for putting on this episode for us. Today, we are joined by a seasoned sales professional, Jared Ollmann, coming to us from my studio. Jared, we're going to talk about the sales director's playbook today, right?
We are, yep.
Awesome. I'm excited to get into that. We're going to go deep. We're going to give a lot of substance. And before we jump into all of that, Jared, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself? Let the listeners know a little bit about you.
Yeah. Well, Devyn, thanks for having me. I'm excited to talk through everything that we have here. A little bit about me. I've been in sales for just about 10 years now. Started as a sales agent, individual contributor selling marketing at a company called Yodel. So shout out to anyone from Yodel. You know it's a brotherhood. You still have your orange coffee mug. You're welcome at my house anytime. Earned President's Club there. We had 31 teams there. And when I first moved into management, I took the number 30 team out of 31 and in 1.5 months turned them into a number 1 producing team. And we didn't stay number 1 every month, but we were always in the top 5, like kind of dropping to top 7. And it was there that I really learned how to lead people and really, really learned a lot of good ways to not lead people, to be honest.
Nice. Yep.
So at that point, I was in the manager role for about a year and a half, and half of the leaders that I'd made close relationships with went to a company called MindBody. And I had an opportunity to jump in and help kind of build a sales process from the beginning. It wasn't led by me, but I was heavily building, collateral and what if we did this and what if we did that. So that was at MindBody back in 2017, 2018. The sales process went from kind of like, hey, let's let our reps create their own sales process to, no, let's build a sales process and then coach to a winning formula. And we did that. And the sales process was mandated company wide. I got to fly over to Australia to teach the team how to close it using it. And then from MindBody, I found, went back to my original company where I got my start. Half the leaders that remained were kind of bugging me to come back for the whole time I was at MindBody, so I did. And then a year after I went back, they did a mass layoff and laid off the whole sales department. 500 people affected in one go. I found Grubhub that day. Actually, was there for 2.5 years, and then Devyn's recruiter called me to work at Mind with him, which is where I met Devyn. And then from Mind, another headhunter called me, and I was still a frontline sales manager at that point. And a headhunter called me to pursue a director role, and fortunately, I had to walk into Devyn's office and give him the bad news that I was leaving.
Best day of my life. Just kidding. Terrible day. I still remember how nervous you were.
Very.
And those types of things happen. And here we are, over a year later, having this conversation. We've obviously remained in touch, stayed friends. And that's the fun thing about business, I think, if you're doing it right. And this is probably a leadership lesson that you learned, what to do, what not to do, like you mentioned in your previous experience, is, leadership is all about setting other people up for success, opening doorways, giving them tools, giving them resources, hoping, and that they'll latch on to the guidance and tools and resources and everything that you give so that they can be more and more successful in their roles. And ultimately that usually leads to them moving on and moving up, right? You moved on from being a frontline sales manager with me to being a director at your current company. So hopefully the things that you were given and taught and everything else throughout the time that we had together helped you in your new role. And that's to me one of the measures of success, right? Is, are your people moving forward? And ideally, I think you would consider me a mentor to you for a time. And for me, my personal goal is to have my mentees become my mentors in the future, right? Like I want to get advice and learn from, and we'll probably do that today. You've gone on to this director role at my studio. Very exciting opportunity and a lot of responsibility that you were given right out of the gate. And you got basically, not necessarily a blank check, but a blank slate to really grow this outbound sales motion for my studio. So let's jump into that. Let's jump into that material and talk about this playbook that you developed for sales directors that are kind of starting with a blank slate. Where should we start? What do you think?
Man. So yeah, to double down on the things you said there. And by the way, all of this is going to be edited, so I can mess up a few times, right? Like, all right.
Yes.
So where do we start? The first thing I would recommend. So I've been in the role now for a year and a half, about, and it was my first time as a sales director. I just knew that I could lead people. I knew that I could coach salespeople. These were things that you have to know about yourself before you jump into the role. You have to know that you can lead people, whether they're strong or weak. And if they're weak, you make them better. And if they're strong, you make them stronger. And man, you got to be secure in a director role. That is something I did not know going into it. There were times where like Devyn would give me feedback one-on-one about why I wasn't ready for a director role. I would walk out of those meetings and go, man, screw that guy. But there are things where I look back on the one-on-ones where Devyn and I had, and I was like, I was not ready for a director role. Maybe towards the end of, when I left mine, I was closer. But the first thing I would say is focus on making sure that and you're confident in your people leadership skills. Know what to do in every situation that comes up around quota, pay, churn. And then once you're comfortable there and you know that you can do it, if you're lucky enough to have a blank slate where a company has never had an outbound sales process, the first thing I would recommend is diving into what the owner's expectations are around quota. What goal do they have to achieve? And then it's up to you as the director to either say, yeah, that's obtainable, or use your expertise. And this is where you have to kind of have to sell the owner. If maybe that goal is a little too big for the check that they are or are not prepared to write. So first thing I would do, talking with the owner we're talking building from a sales team from zero to something or whatever it is that you're capable of building. First thing is expectation set. What does the owner want? What are they asking you to do in terms of revenue? Specifically, how much revenue at the end of however long they're going to hire you for, how much of that are you going to be responsible for?
Okay, so just to summarize here, I didn't know what I was talking about, or so you thought, but you also didn't know what you didn't know.
Yeah, that's true.
And maybe you got a little dose of reality when you stepped into the director role, and good for you for having that humility of being like, well, maybe I was wrong.
Yeah.
I think we all can step into those situations, and it's sometimes we are the problem, or sometimes we've contributed to the problem. And in either situation, there's something else that we could do differently, right? So good learning. And second thing you said there was essentially aligning expectations. So whoever is giving you this blank slate, or cutting the checks, you and that person are going to get alignment on what the outcomes or what the deliverables of your role should be, from your own personal output to the frontline reps and what they should be producing in a given 12 months. Is that correct?
Yeah. Not only that, but how long will it take for you to ramp them, right? Like even if you Google even has such a different answer for that question is like, how long does it take a rep to be profitable? How long does it take a rep to make their first sale? So depending on the complexity of the sale that you're stepping into to lead an organization, you should have a really good idea of, and that was one of the mistakes that I made early on was, I can get a salesperson selling 15 deals a month outbound. What I didn't say was that takes about a year to get a pipeline in a new role to consecutively build a pipeline that supports 15 deals a month. And so what the CEO ended up hearing was, oh, cool, he's going to hire a bunch of these salespeople and they're just going to start selling 15 deals a month. From
day one.
There was a little bit more like grace to it than that, but that is a risk that you run. If you say I can do X, Y, and Z, be very clear about how long it takes to ramp up to X, Y, and Z.
Yeah. Good. So step one, aligning on quota, metrics, output per rep, and being very specific about what steps will need to happen and the time frame around those steps to make sure that there's alignment there, right? Generally, that means that the business owner or whoever it may be is going to burn some capital. They're going to spend some money, and invest that money is probably the better way to put it, right? They're going to invest that money in you and those reps for the first few months or 12 months, right? Depending on the product and the sales cycle and everything else. So making sure they understand what kind of investments are going to be made to get the kind of output that they want, critical right up front. Absolutely.
I mean, just to tag on to that real quick. So for the first time, yes, I've been in the role a year and a half now. I've really had my team for 7 months because I moved to Virginia and we decided after doing it remote, that probably isn't the best thing for an outbound sales organization. You just miss so much in terms of coaching opportunities, team energy. You miss too much to create that, or at least that was my experience.
Yeah, so that's probably a good little nugget right there, right? Is if you're going to build an outbound sales team, COVID happened, everybody went to this remote workforce. A lot of companies have brought their employees back into the office, and a team like this that's doing outbound sales, it's a tough business, right? It's a really hard business. Doing that in office where you can get more real-time coaching, lift people up if they're having a tough day, right? You can't see that when they're sitting in their home office, making these phone calls, potentially getting rejected one after the other. So having a team all in the same building, working together, critical in your opinion to the success of an outbound.
Critical. And I think the saying goes, you can fool some of the people all of the time, all of the people some of the time, but you can't fool all of the people all of the time. And what I found with an outbound sales team remote outbound sales team was rep number 1 would be having a great day. Rep number 2 in pictures working really hard, like you could see it in their dials, but they're not getting a lot of results. So whether you're using like Nooks or Zoom or some sort of software that allows you to like walk around a virtual office, I would walk into rep number 2's office and be like, hey, how you doing today, man? Here to pump you up, right? And they would just put on a quick show like, oh, I'm doing great. And life couldn't be better. I'm happy. But in reality, you can't fake that all of the time in the office when you're having a rough day. You just can't. It's written on your face, how you sound. And you need people around you with an outbound sales team. Like there are no inbound leads. This is all hunt and kill, period. So when you wear your heart on your sleeve, call after call after call, and you get told no, call after call after call, we're all human. We're gonna feel that, and we're gonna sound that way too. So that's why it's so important to have that team energy in the office. I'll never do an outbound remote team ever again.
Got it.
Yeah.
Got it. So you moved to Virginia. You've now started to build the team. But before that, what steps did you have to take to make sure that those team members, when you hired them in the office, could actually be successful in their role?
Yeah. So there's a few steps prior to hiring that I would seriously consider if I'm stepping into another director role. The first one is, what's your tech stack? And the reason that we need these next things in place first is because if your goal is to hire the best of the best, or at least like maybe not performance wise the best of the best, but you want somebody that at least has grit, determination, optimism, and is coachable. If you want that type of candidate that has the best of the best qualities inside of those qualities, those competencies, then you need to have your stuff together internally, because they will ask you, well, what do you use for your tech stack? Is it Salesforce? What's your dialer? How reliable is it? So prior to hiring, having your tech stack fully operational before hiring. Because if you hire a rock star and they come in and half your stuff is broken, they're out soon. And now we're talking about churn rate. You have to go report back to the CEO why you hired this person and why they left 2 months later.
Top performer that's used to Salesforce doesn't want to come in and work off of spreadsheets in a new role.
That's right. Unless the money's there. Now, if the money's there, they'll put up with it. But if you're still proving this out and it's like 0 to 60 as quick as you can go, you got to have your stuff together. And career.
And again, those are more investments that the owner or whoever is giving you this blank slate needs to be aware of. Okay, there's some work that we have to. So we're going to align on expectations. We're going to align on quotas. We're going to align on the spend for investing in these people and hiring them and letting them ramp. And there's some technology that we need to be able to be efficient and to make sure that they can produce at a high level, because setting those quotas is one thing, but having the resources to obtain them, something totally different, right?
Oh yeah. So, so I did do a good job of this one step, setting expectations around tech stack. Like, are you aware of how much this costs here? And then I was the one, you will be the one that goes out and gets bids for Salesforce, and you negotiate the contract, and then you sign a 3-year commitment because you're pumped up. And then then they hire a marketing department 2 or 3 months later, and they're like, let's use HubSpot. And then they revisit your decision to sign a 3-year contract with Salesforce that costs $15,000, $20,000 a year. And now you look like an idiot, so you have to take all of that into consideration. Tech stack is very important. Career pathing. If you don't have your career pathing lined up, like, okay, Jared, you're going to hire me. How long is it going to take me to go from entry level to level 2 to level 3? And if your answer to that is, I don't know, during an interview, I'll get back to you on that. That rock star, maybe they have high performance, maybe not. I'm not talking about performance. I'm talking about somebody that has like coachable characteristics and they're displaying behaviors that are top notch there. If that person asks you that question, like, how do I move up in the organization? And you don't have an answer for it, you're going to look silly, and they're going to probably entertain other offers.
Got it. Okay. So get your tech stack squared away. And this is for the interview process so that you can be well prepared and speak to what you have, what tools, what resources you have for those sales reps so they can be successful in the role. You need to understand what their career progression looks like, how quickly they can move up into certain levels, probably understand if they want to maintain individual contributor status or if they have a desire to go into management. And if they want to go into management, what that would look like, how do you prepare them? Is that part of the career pathing conversation you have with them as well?
Yeah, absolutely. So during the interview, everyone asks about, okay, because you ask them what they're looking for. Like, what are you looking for in your next role, right? That question comes up 99% of the time as interviewers. And the stock answer to that is, I want to make as much money as I'm making now or more, and I want to be able to grow my career. Well, obviously growing our career is how do I move up in your org and ultimately make more money, have more responsibility. And inside of that, you'll find like 1 out of 10 individual contributors are like, nope, I'm good. I'll stay an individual contributor. I don't want to manage anybody. And you need a career pathing for that person that's just going to come in, stay an individual contributor and perform. And how can you pay them the absolute most amount of money to obtain the highest possible quota? Because they'll want that answer as well. So there's a career path for individual contributors to move up that only want to be individual contributors. And Devyn, something I learned from you, which is amazing, is have that career pathing for somebody that wants to go from individual contributor to leadership. What does that look like? Level 1, level 2, how we're set up internally, can I share my screen?
Yeah, let's go for it.
Okay. So what our career pathing looks like, it's very simple. You come in, you're an account executive level 1, and on an outbound model, we could talk about this if I do another podcast or have time today, but I'm the type of leader where I'm not too concerned with past performance, whether it's extremely high or extremely low. I think there's a story that can be painted in both of those scenarios. But this is our career pathing. If you come to my studio right now, you will start as an entry-level account executive. And so we say success in this role looks like this: 8 deals per month during any rolling 6-month period. You're eligible for promotion once you achieve more than 8 deals on a consistent basis. Consistent is defined as minimum of 3 out of the last 6 months. So that means your rolling average has to be 8 or higher in the last really 3 months of the last 6-month period. If you achieve that, you're eligible for promotion. And then, as you can see, we've outlined the role. We have competencies. Like we're measuring more than just your performance. Like, what's your attitude like? What's your sales acumen? How are you grading that? So this right here gives a candidate security that you have your stuff together. And if you can show them this during the interview process, there's something that they can see that shows them, okay, I just do that and I get to move up and I get a pretty sizable salary. So for us internally, you can start at my studio and within 7 months, really, you can move to account executive level 2. And then we've kind of outlined that account executive 1, 2, 3, or you can go account, and that would be the full individual contributor route, or you can go account executive 1, 2, and then senior. And if you go senior, I would reduce your quota and make you responsible for more of a team quota. You'd get a base pay raise. But this way you are now responsible and your paycheck is tied to the people under you. So you'll learn real quick about leadership in that scenario. We also couple this with minimum performance standards. So this document exists to create transparency. You can see on a daily minimum, and I share this during every interview, you are going to do 110 outbound phone calls per day. And the goal is to set 2 demos per day. So this is effort. And then we have skill, which is being able to convince people to sit down for 30 minutes to view a demo. Your hold rate needs to be at 45%. So if you set 2 meetings in one day, ideally one of those holds the next day. And as long as we're closing at 40%, that will, if you reverse engineer the numbers here, this will shake out to 8 deals per month per account manager. That 8 deals per month per account manager will lead into your quota that you have where you talked with the CEO about what the expectation is. So I need to know, as an entry-level salesperson, as someone coming to you and deciding if I'm going to work for you or I'm going to go work for these other 5 offers that I'm about to get. I need to know, can I do this and how does that work into me getting paid? And so this is what I share with them on every call, on every first interview.
Nice. And how do the candidates typically respond to you providing that much information to them?
Well, they like it. And so earlier I mentioned that when somebody's changing fields, they want to know, can I make as much money as I'm making right now or more? And can I grow my career? Can I move forward? Can I move up? And then kind of like a third quick one is the person that I'm going to be reporting to, are they a nightmare or do they have their stuff together? So you really need to put that on in the interview process. Like, what are you like as a boss? Because they're taking that into consideration as well. The reason I paint that picture is because I have an outbound sales team of 6 right now. I have extended offers to 7 people. So my close rate during the interview process is high. And I've lost nobody in the last seven months since we started in office, which from an outbound sales model, you all know that churn is high in sales.
Yeah. Most reps don't make it past 90 days in the outbound world, right? You'll usually get a good majority of them that churn out in that period, especially when it's so new, like your motion is, and you're out trying to recruit some great talent, and that talent needs to see the pathway to their personal income increasing and success and everything else to stick with it. So kudos to you for having that kind of retention rate, and also the conversion rate, if you will, on the offers extended, offers accepted. That's a big part of the game, right? In sales, is in business in general, is, and sometimes it gets overlooked. Obviously not. There's a lot of recruiting firms and there's HR departments, and a lot of businesses put a lot of effort around hiring and recruiting and everything else. Generally, smaller businesses don't necessarily emphasize that as much. They just don't have the same resources to do it. So it's critical for someone like you that is building a team, or the business owner themselves, to be hyper-focused on the candidate experience, which you've obviously articulated what that looks like, and giving them documentation and helping them see the picture of what it would be like to work with a boss like you. And they're obviously going to compare that to their current boss and be like, oh yeah, they don't do that. They don't do that, right? And you want to stand out if you're trying to attract the best talent. So something to think about as you're growing or scaling your own company is the importance of the interview process, being organized, showing up on time for those interviews. You never know who's on the other side of that camera or desk if you're doing it in person. And that one hire could potentially transform your business. So overinvest, I would say, in the screening process, the interview process, the hiring process. Find those people that can really make a difference for your business and show really well yourself through that process. Interviewing is a two-way street, right? That candidate's looking at you and interviewing you, and you should be doing the same for them, obviously. And you come to a mutual agreement that, yeah, this is a good relationship. That dynamic has definitely shifted in the corporate world, right? Where it was more so, the candidate was at the mercy of the business. And now, businesses have realized what a difference that right person can make for their business. So the candidate has a little bit more leverage at this point.
Yeah. And so that was actually something, Devyn, that I learned from you so when you were interviewing me first for Mind, I jumped on the call, and what was really frustrating to me about the hiring process, not for you, but just the hiring process out there, was you jump on the call and then the recruiter or the hiring manager says, hey, man, tell me a little bit about yourself. And right away they're asking you questions. And then that merges into, well, why are you leaving your current role? And then that goes right into interview. So on the spot, I don't even know as the candidate if I want to work for you yet. I'm comfy, dude. The best people that we can hire already have jobs. Let's just put it that way. So if you're gonna rip them from a comfortable situation and put them in an unknown situation, why does it make sense to start drilling them with questions right away? And so what Devyn taught me right when I joined the call was, hey, Jared, I obviously am going to ask you some questions, right? That's expected. But before I do that, if there's anything that's really important for you to know right away, or anything that you want me to know right away, let's start there. Let's figure out first if you even want the role. And once we do that, then I'll ask you a bunch of questions and qualify you. And man, I've used that on every single interview. And there was one of our top performer actually that he came in and he achieved profitability as a sales rep in 2 months. We'll put it that way, which is unheard of.
Great. Yep.
He actually sat back in his chair and was like, wow, that is a really empathetic way of conducting an interview. And he was tough, man. That was a very difficult salesperson to close on, taking a gamble with my studio. But he's still here. He's profitable. He's winning. And it was that subtle intro from a change of just like get their needs answered first and then qualify them. Everyone knows that's going to come. But that helped me close that one. So thank you for that, Devyn.
Yeah, you're welcome. For anybody listening, right? Power of the verbal agenda is what we call that. And it's basically outlining how a conversation is going to go. In any good sales process, you're going to put your prospect and their needs first, right? You're going to ask a lot of questions to understand their situation. And as Jared has pointed out here, the before you jump into that, you always want to make sure step 4 of the verbal agenda is, hey, before I jump in, what specifically would you like to have happen as a result of this conversation? What would you love to know by the time we end this call? What anything that you came prepared to discuss in this call today, right? So giving the other person, again, you're starting in their world, giving the other person the opportunity to open up and share whatever's on their mind. Oh yeah, well, I'm glad you asked that, man. I'm actually kind of nervous for this. Like, I have an interview for a job for a while. Great. Thanks for sharing that.
Perfect,
right.
Yeah.
Let's, so that it just opens the door to kind of bring walls down, let somebody open up to you, ideally share with you, and get in that framework of stepping into their world. Because that's what it's about at the end of the day. You're trying to get them to do something helpful for you, right?
Yep.
It's not disingenuous, but it's like, hey, if this is something you're about, then let's make this happen, right? And at the end of the conversation or that process, if an offer is extended and we bring you on board, right, it should be a benefit to you as the employee or the salesperson, and it's going to be a benefit to me as the employer, especially in this case where he was profitable after 60 days of ramp. That's a phenomenal outcome.
Yeah. So, and we're actually calculating not just his salary. We're talking about employer paid benefits, tech stack. What is the cost of your seat? That would be another good way of putting like a hire is, what does it cost to sit in that seat? Because it's not just the salary, it's the tech stack, the rent price for literally you can get down to that seat. And you can tell the rep, this is why your quota is the way it is. Your seat costs this much per month. So if you can't do that, obviously businesses aren't here to lose money. So,
yeah, there's a lot of philosophies on variable comp, right, with sales rep. And I will be the first to say, give sales reps variable comp, right?
Oh, yeah.
That is why we do sales. Like, base salary, great. Give us variable comp. And like you just touched on, the critical piece about running a business is being very clear about, the cost of your employment beyond just having the salary. And where the different philosophies come in is, do I pay you on deal one a commission, or do I wait until you are now covering the cost of being employed, and now I can start paying you some variable comp on your production? I know how I lean. How do you lean in that situation?
Well, yeah, I think if we're all running our own business and we want our people to make money, right, we want to pay them as quickly as possible. That's what's in it for you as an owner. If you pay people quickly and get them a commission, they'll stay. If they're not making commission, they'll leave. So the goal is, how do I get them a win and how do I make them win quick? And that's your job as the director, whether you're going to be leading being a frontline sales manager and a director at the same time, or you're hiring a manager underneath of you and the manager is now coaching people to win. I promise you, if those 5 people that you hire get in and none of them make a commission in 60 days, you're going to hire another 5 people. And guess who looks like the not knowing what they're doing person? That would be you.
Yep.
So you have to get them in and you got to get them making money quickly. And so I lean more so on, I don't need you to cover your seat, but I need to believe that eventually you'll cover your seat. And so what is that tolerance? It goes right back to ramping expectations with the CEO. How much money can you afford or are comfortable with paying out before we have to unfortunately let somebody go? So for us, that mark is 4 months. If you were to hire under me right now, I wouldn't expect you to do really anything except learn how to be a very good cold caller in 4 months, or in the first 60 days, really. You'll start running demos on day 61. I expect no closes from you from day 61 to day 90. I'll be on every single demo with you and I'll run demos for you and break them down with you afterwards. And that's me trying to get you to win quickly, right? But for the hiring process, I say, hey, I have a 4-month period where you can come in and get comfortable. And that's to make the sale easy, to get them to say yes. But then if we follow those minimum performance standards, 110 dials a day, 2 demo sets per day, 45% hold rate, that will lead to a commission check as long as your sales process as the leader is good.
Got it. Do you pay them on target earnings during their ramping period as if they're hitting quota?
Oh,
Or
yeah.
do you withhold commissions until they start producing?
So what I'm not a fan of is, okay, let's say that your fully ramped quota is 8 deals per month. So month one, okay, all right, let's say you get $5,000 if you close 8 deals, right? So you hire a salesperson and say, okay, in month one, if you get 1 deal, we're going to give you that full $5,000. And then what happens is that person gets 2 deals and now they get 10 grand because they just blew your expectations out of the water, which is great. But then month 2 hits, and now in order to get that same type of paycheck, they have to do 2 deals. So now they get 2 deals and they get a $5,000 check. I don't like that. I would so much rather say, hey, come in here and make 0 commission for 4 months and get comfortable if that's what you can do. And then I just don't hire people that respond positively to that, right? Like, but what I'm looking for them to say is, can I make commissions sooner than day 61? And when they ask that question, you can see how they're thinking. And you know that they're going to come in and they're going to give it their all for at least 30 days. They will do their best for at least the 30 days. And if you don't help them win, they start losing buy-in. They start sounding like they're losing buy-in on their phone calls, and then you start losing team members. So I'm more of a fan of, here's the ramping process. Take as long as you need. By the way, you can make money now if you just get to X amount of deals now.
Got it. I like it. Good specifics right there. Okay, so from there you have the hiring process nailed. You got your tech. You've set performance standards. You've given them career pathing. You've got a program for them to onboard and what that looks like, doing demos with them, doing demos for them, allowing them to shadow. What's next?
Okay. Sales collateral. So we're almost to the hiring part. Almost. We get 2 more steps. This is one. You have to have your cold call scripts, because what happens if, let's say I'm interviewing with you and I don't know anything about sales, but you believe that I will be coachable. I will be not a nightmare to be around. I will be optimistic and happy, and I will just put my best damn foot forward every day. Like, you will probably give me a shot, especially entry level.
Is there any specific question you like to ask?
Yeah.
To measure somebody's attitude? What is it?
So I like to say this pretty early just to see how they respond. I don't know if it's super effective yet. The data is a little low, but I like to tell them, I don't care if you're a top performer and I don't care if you're a bottom performer. I think in both scenarios, there's a reason you can paint that picture. Are you a top performer getting different leads? Or if you're a bottom performer, okay, cool. I would love to hear that story and tell me why. Because what I'm listening for as a hiring manager is, and not a lot of people are going to be honest and say they're a bottom performer, but I have had a few. And what I'm looking for is for them to either, if they're going to point fingers, they better sell me on a really good story on why they're pointing fingers. If they look internally and say, yeah, I just didn't give it my best, then now they need to sell me on why I think that they're going to give me their best. So I like to say that, but I always like to ask behavioral questions like, Devyn, let's say you and I, or let's say you were in a group of 10 friends and you really wanted to go to the Cheesecake Factory, which we all know is your favorite restaurant. You claim it to be the greatest in all the land, which is not true, but another podcast. You really wanted to go to Cheesecake Factory, and literally 50% of the group wanted to go to the Cheesecake Factory, but the other 50% wanted to go somewhere else. And a part of that other percent of the group, there was an advocate for the other restaurant. What do you sound like? What do you do in that situation? Tell me what you do.
Great question. And what response are you looking for from a candidate?
So obviously they're applying for a sales role. So this is where you're going to start seeing who they are, right? It's it's like uncomfortable it's tough to be someone you're not. And so I don't really care how good you are at persuading me to go to the Cheesecake Factory. I just care to see the effort and like your thought process on how you would go about trying to convince me, and then how hard you try to convince me. Because being uncomfortable like that in an interview process, where 1, you're able to recognize, okay, they're asking this question for a reason, and 2, I better at least try. That's what I'm looking for. Give me your effort. I could coach the effort. I can make you better at sales. But what I can't do is, if you're the guy that stands in the background just thinking quietly to yourself, I just kind of want to go to the Cheesecake Factory, I can't help you. So,
yeah. What you're looking for them to not do is just say, well, I would just probably go with what the group decides.
Yeah, if that ever comes, be very clear and put this in the intro of this podcast, please save people money. If somebody makes decisions based off of how the group makes decisions, that is not an outbound salesperson and probably not an inbound salesperson. Don't hire them.
I was driving with a client of mine recently, and we were going to the Phoenix Open. So you can imagine what the traffic looks like getting off the freeway at that specific exit to get to where you need to go at the Phoenix Open. Just a line of cars a mile long, right? And it started backing up early. I had already kind of made my way over to the right side in preparation of getting off the freeway. And as soon as I saw that traffic was backed up, I made it back over to the left and started passing all these cars on my right side. And my client with me goes, "What kind of driver would you say you are?" I was like, I'm pretty moderate. I don't go crazy. I don't need a bunch of tickets and things like that. But I'm not going to wait in a line like that to get off the freeway. I'm going to find a gap. And he goes, "I usually can understand what type of salesperson somebody will be by their driving behaviors, right? Are you going to wait in line with all these other people, or are you going to find a gap, right?"
Yeah.
And I think salespeople generally have a bad reputation. However, your job is persuasion. Your job is to get somebody viewing things differently about the world, thinking about things differently, right? So standing by and getting in line with all the other cars is not going to persuade somebody to do anything differently. It's like, are you going to be a little bit assertive? Are you going to step in where you need to step in, right? So I thought that was a pretty interesting. Yeah. I've never looked at it that way. It associated my driving behaviors with my sales ability. But I think that was probably a good demonstration for that client to understand kind of who I am.
That's going to go in my next interview, actually. I'm going to see how that one works.
If there's a line of cars waiting to get off the freeway a mile away, what do you do?
Yeah. Right? You get in that left lane and you roll, man. Like, you find a shortcut.
Find the gap.
The last question that's really important for me to ask in an interview is, I was just thinking about it and it left. It's very important, as you can tell. It'll come back in a second. Oh yeah. So the other question that's really important for me is like, what can I expect from you on a daily basis? And so I paint the picture like this. I say, hey, like I look for three things. Are you coachable? So I'm going to ask behavioral questions around coachability. Tell me about a time where you got tough feedback that you had to apply, and did it work? The second one is, are you hardworking? So if I were to take a sneak peek behind your company stack rankings and see your KPIs and see your minimums, what would I see? Would I see at the halfway mark or the bottom, or why? Or like paint that picture for me. And then three, tell me about your optimism level, because outbound cold calling, it requires a lot of optimism. Like literally you can call 10 people in a row and all of them say no, but that next one could be the guy. But if you sound like 10 people just told you no, that next one is not the guy. So I paint the picture and say, hey, we've all been around the person in the office that stubbed their toe in the morning, and then everybody else has to hear about the other 10 things that are wrong with their life. So what I want to hear about from you is, tell me about a time where it would have been really easy for you to be, and justified, where it would have been easy and justified for you to have a bad attitude, but you kept it up. And I just want to hear that story. And if they have one, I mean, everybody has one, right? If what I found is if they give you some generic story that's just kind of made up on the spot, that means that they are the person that does not have high optimism. But your go-getters, they'll be like, oh my gosh, man, listen to this, right? And now you're having that conversation, Devyn, that you mentioned earlier, where it's mutual and they know that you're just getting to know them and will be a good fit. And ideally, this is after you've already identified with the candidate that this is a place they want to work at. Because once they know they want to work with you, they better put their sales hat on and sell themselves to work with you. That's the trade-off for starting an interview that way. So,
right. Yep. Yeah. And that perspective is true in outbound. It's true in inbound as well. If you're getting leads coming to you in volume and, marketing is doing their best to generate their marketing qualified leads, And now you have to really qualify them as a sales rep, and you're just getting hammered with some garbaggio, right? Like just spam and whatever else may come through your inbox as a sales rep. Same thing holds true. It's like, going into that next lead with a clean slate, fresh attitude of like, this lead could be the lead, right? This is a career changer. That's the same attitude you have to take on the outbound call as well. This phone call could be a career changer. This is a difference maker for the company. And if you start, there's a great TEDx talk by Jason Goldberg, might sound familiar to you. It's in my sales training, talking about manufacturing curiosity. And essentially the 3 words that most adult professionals are terrified to use that are most critical to be able to manufacture curiosity. Jared, do you remember what those 3 words are that Jason recommends us utilizing with frequency to manufacture fascination?
I do.
And
the 3 words are, I don't know.
I don't know, right? It's an attitude thing, in my opinion. Using those words, again, as a director or executive of sales, like it's tough to walk into a meeting with your peers or boss and use the words, I don't know. You generally are required to know everything and know what's going on, right? That's a measure of your performance a lot of times, is have some control over your dominion, your domain, your team. However, when you're doing outbound sales, inbound sales, any kind of discovery, to one, not get bored, right?
Yeah.
And not get tired of being rejected all the time. Those 3 words of I don't know, it makes every interaction completely new.
Yep.
Especially, if you're picking up the phone with like, they're not going to answer anyways. Yeah, no one ever picks up the phone, right? Like you said earlier, they're gonna hear that when they do pick up the phone. You're gonna, oh shit, no one ever answers the phone, right? Like that's what's going through your head, and your prospect is going to hear that, even though you may not, hopefully, don't say those words out loud. You're going to have to pivot and shift your mindset and kind of get into the game because you went into it with such a negative attitude. But if you walk into every phone call, every lead that comes in with, I don't know, here we go. I don't know how this one's going to go, right? Now there's no assumptions going in, and it can completely change the outcome of that conversation with just that little bit of a pivot. So I like that. I like that point of view. Jason.
Genuine curiosity. Yeah, I think Jason said, obviously you just said what he said. It's a manufacturing curiosity. I like to call it genuine curiosity as well, because especially on a discovery call, everybody's story is different. How it doesn't matter if it's the same business and it's 2 different locations. How that guy got to where he's at is so different. Even if they followed the same playbook, there's still a story there that you can dig into if you just choose to say, I don't know how they got there. And what we do as salespeople is we make assumptions, and those assumptions kill us, and we miss little nuggets of gold. Matt Dixon talks about, 9% of the time does somebody make a price-based decision when they're choosing between option A and B. Matt Dixon, author of The Challenger Sale. If you've never read it, go take a peek. It'll help you. He just came out with a new book called The Jolt Effect. Matt, it was great. If you happen to see this, I want your autograph.
I hope Matt Dixon sees this.
That would be amazing.
Please, Matt, come join me sometime on the podcast.
And Devyn, you and I were in the pre-read for The Jolt Effect, right? That you were there for that one.
Yep.
And he was in his library. Yep. And so he says that 9% of the time does somebody make a purchasing decision based around price. And so, 53% of the time he said they make it that an owner will make a decision to choose product A over B 53% of the time because of the sales process. And he has 4 bullet points on what to do in your sales process to win the business. I won't ruin it, but one of those is avoiding potential landmines. And if you don't even hear somebody's story of how they're building their business, how can you hear the landmines that they're about to hit? And so what Devyn's saying is like manufacturing curiosity is if you just choose, I don't know if they're going to pick up the phone or not, but it's better to be ready than it is to sound like I'm about to hit the snooze button on my alarm. I don't know if when they answer, they're going to hang up on me, but if I sound like that, they are going to hang up on me. I don't know when I start asking these questions what I'm going to hear instead of just hearing the same thing over and over again, right? And this is the optimism that I was talking about earlier. We need salespeople that are like, anything could happen here, including a big old commission check. That's what I need to be thinking all day to sound good. But manufacturing the curiosity and asking good open-ended questions, not bad ones like, tell me what keeps you up at night. That's a terrible open-ended question. Good open-ended questions. And Devyn has a whole training on supercharging open-ended questions and how to get the most from. I think, Devyn, you ran a whole hour-long training that was fun to be a part of, where you just pretty much said the words "tell me more" over and over again. And the whole team was trying to help this one lady tell you more because you kept asking really good questions. And so,
it's one of my favorite techniques to use in sales. And yes, it's a fun exercise. Yes, thank you for the shift. It's a fun exercise, and I've run it 100 times, and the outcome is always the same, which is what gives me such high confidence in using that in my actual sales calls that I do. Is, oh, that's interesting. Tell me more about that. Anything else you could share? And people just continue to share and continue to share and continue to share until they literally run out of, no, I can't think of anything else. Perfect. Now your job is, for the moment, done, and you can move on to the next bit of discovery, the next thing you need to know.
Yep.
It's fun.
So once we have the collateral, so your cold call script, what do you want your team to be saying? How do you want them handling the objections that are going to come? All right, now we have their demo deck. How is a brand new rep going to demo your product? They don't know how to do it, so you should probably have a tool for them to do it while they're ramping. Get them a commission check quickly. And then what is your discount strategy? Because if you just put a brand new rep on the phones, they're going to come to you and say, I got this deal. They need a discount, and we'll get them over the finish line. And if you don't even have your ducks in a row there and you can't give a discount, or you don't have a scalable discount strategy, and you just have to tell that rep no, now you're the bad guy because they're not going to get a commission check because you won't approve a discount. So having your discount strategy. And then lastly, you move to hiring. And then the first thing that you agree on with the CEO about hiring is, here's the goal that you told me you want to hit, $2 million in revenue for the year. Here's what I'm telling you is possible from a sales motion. I need to hire this many reps that are going to accomplish this, this, and this on a monthly basis. So I need to hire this amount of salespeople. And this is where I made a mistake is I wanted to hire all those people at once. CEO wanted to hire one or two and see if I knew what I was doing and ramping and could get people. And then once those two were successful, then we'll do two more and then we'll do one more. Well, that onboarding strategy, hiring two, and one, is a whole lot different than my strategy of hiring 5. And so all I did was say, I need to hire 5 people. And he said, cool, shake hands on it. Let's do that. And then I hired 2, and he's like, okay, that's good for 3 months. I'm like, what the hell? That doesn't work. Like, that is not a team. That is and I was frustrated. So how many reps do you need, and when are you going to hire them? And by the way, if a CEO comes to you at that point and says, well, we don't have the money for that. Well, hopefully you've had that conversation before you were hired so you can make a decision on whether or not that's a stable environment for you to be in. So when you hire, know how many reps you're going to hire, have all of that in place. And then there's like 4 more steps that I've learned so far in this career. And perhaps, Devyn, maybe we need to do an intro where we talk about some of my results, so that way there's some credibility behind it. The team is profitable right now, actually, in 7 months. So maybe we put that in the beginning somewhere. Yeah,
we should. And before we transition to that, which we can talk about those results, but I wanted to highlight. So what I've heard from you, Jared, over and over through this conversation, and this stands out to me specifically because generally a lot of people that find their way into sales may not be great at this specific thing. And this specific thing I'm talking about is details, right? Through this conversation, you've mentioned be specific about this, how many you need, when you need them, how you're going to hire them, what they're going to cost, how long they're going to cost that for. what the total projected revenue is from that group of people when you see that coming to fruition. So that's something in frontline sales. If you want to move into management, get good at the details. I've seen countless sales notes from sales reps where they put in the bare minimum amount of information where only they would understand it and no one else ever would. That won't cut it. If you're looking to move up and you want to be in leadership as a manager, director, senior director, VP, everything else, the expectation is you are detail oriented. Yeah. And if you don't have that naturally, coach yourself, get coaching, develop crutches if you have to, right? Different ways to make sure that you can capture important details and be more detail oriented. In my experience, that's not something that salespeople are generally great at, right? And it's so it is a skill that you have to learn. It is a behavior you have to learn. You have to want to learn it. The first piece of any type of change is making the conscious commitment you're going to do it, right? Something else I talk about in training that I do with active listening. How do you become a better active listener? Step one is deciding to be better at active listening, making the conscientious choice. You're not going to interrupt. You're going to make eye contact. You're going to verbally acknowledge what they're saying. You're going to listen and you're not going to think about what you're saying next. You're just going to take in every word that they say so that you can provide them with a verbal recap, right? And so that's the second piece of active listening is making the decision, making sure you're listening so that you can provide them with a good verbal recap and make sure you don't miss anything, right? So there's another little nugget there, but making that choice to be detail oriented and to focus on details and think about details will provide you with the outcomes that you're looking for. Absent of those details, you run into some landmines like you've experienced in your journey so far, right?
Yeah, actually, that was one of the things that held me back under you from becoming a director sooner. Now, I think towards the end, and we might have to talk about this, I think you would have hired me if I put my name in for the hat. But before I applied, I was reached out to by another company. But one thing that Devyn would always tell me is, he said, focus on the details. And that's great. Thanks for the coaching. Give me a thing where I didn't do that. Right. And he did. And it hurt because it was real feedback, as real feedback does. And I still was like, you know what, man, that's so pointless to focus on that, where I have this whole team of people that are relying on me to get them to quota. I'm going to put that to the side for now. Oh man, being in the role, like understanding that how much the details matter. So a really good example is what Devyn just talked about. I'm separated now from the individual contributors further than I ever have been. And as a director, I look at sales notes and I go, man, that person tells me they want to be in leadership. And all I see is F.U -date some other crazy thing. And F.U doesn't mean FU, it means follow up for that rep. I'm like, how can I picture putting them in a leadership role? That individual contributor wants to be in leadership and they're not even, there's no so as a director, I'm not having day-to-day conversations with that person. I see their body of work as minimal at best with no details. So that's a really good example, Devyn. And yes, the details do matter much more than I ever thought they would. And it is the worst part of my game that I've consciously made an effort to be better at, but I'm still not very good.
Yeah. We all have work to do on all types of things every day. And that's part, I think, of what you've done in building your team, right? Is hopefully you've got an environment there at my studio where people are allowed to make mistakes, not repeatedly, right? But mistakes are actually embraced. Hey, I appreciate the effort. You're trying. You need to see that. And here's what not to do going forward, right? Here's what to do going forward. That environment where people are able to learn on the job a little bit is critical. Not to feel afraid of making mistakes is critical, and being open and receptive to feedback, whether they want to hear it or not, right? And whether they want to apply it or not, is if you're coming as a manager from a good place and you're looking out for them and their professional development, and you provide that feedback from a place of empathy and professionalism, right? That, I think, not to get on a soapbox, but part of creating a track like you've talked about for somebody that wants to go into management is you can be a top producing salesperson and be the worst manager on the planet. It happens all the time. It happens every day. Corporations promote top producers into management and they fall on their face and go back into individual contributor roles within 90 days because they're totally different skill sets, right? So ideally, that's the kind of environment you've created at my studio where reps are comfortable and coming to you, hey, I did this, hey, I did that. And, you don't write people up for things like that. You write them up if they make the same mistake over and over and over. Say, okay, well, now, we've been through this plenty of times and here's the documentation. I know you have it. So now it's crossed into like unacceptable behavior and we have to take some corrective action, right? But keeping that environment open where people can come to you and learn and get better, critical. And then you look for the ones that actually do it, right? That was the same thing for me looking in notes, just like you have. You look at those notes. If you have a conversation with somebody and their notes don't change, great. You've told me everything I need to know, right? I'll go find the person that does update and change and give me more robust sales notes after I talk to them about it. And that's somebody that I'm going to look at for management.
Yeah.
All right. So let's, anything else that we should talk about, or should we talk about some of your results, some of the outcomes?
If anyone wants to reach out to me on LinkedIn, just for the sake of the podcast and not going over, there's talking more in depth about what's a P&L sheet, profit and loss, specific to your department. How do you build it? And just so you can show on a monthly recurring basis, how much money is going out to your team and how much is coming in, and when are we going to achieve profitability? If you want help building that, add me on LinkedIn and type something really funny to get my attention and I'll get back to you. Coaching the team. What are you going to do to coach the team? What structure do you have in place? Are you going to do KPI meetings on Mondays and one-on-ones in the week? So I highly recommend that you have a strategy in place for what is the minimum expectation that your salespeople will have with you or their direct supervisor, and then hold that manager accountable to those minimum coaching sessions. And then the last one is how are you tracking your KPIs? Having Salesforce to enable your team to make phone calls is step one, and that's good. How are you going to track dials? How are you going to track demo sets? How are you going to track inbound marketing qualified to sales qualified meetings? How are you going to track the KPIs that are really important to you because you're going to need them? If you don't have KPIs, you are not ready to hire salespeople because all you will do is be throwing money at what you think is good talent, and then one of you will get frustrated that the other one is not doing something they said they will eventually. So if you don't have a way of tracking KPIs, I can help with that too. But yeah, we can move on to some results.
Awesome. Thank you. Where should we start? What do you want to talk about most?
Well, I'm really proud because one, I mentioned to you earlier that hiring remote outbound was difficult. It wasn't just difficult. Like I somehow, if they see this podcast, they're going to be upset. I hired like VPs of sales. There's people that have been in very cutthroat sales environments at a VP level, willing to take an entry-level sales role. That's not true. They started as senior account executives, willing to take senior account executive roles because we are building and scaling this team and the growth opportunities there. So again, hired VPs of sales at bigger companies. These are not like you have a VP of sales role title and then you go sell a small to medium-sized business account every day. This is a VP of sales with multiple layers of managers under them. But they were looking for a move and wanted to get into tech sales and we did that outbound remote. And we just got maybe an average of 5 or 6 deals at best per salesperson. And that is growth, but it's not scale mode, especially considering the salaries. I mean, we were close to 90 grand on just the salary alone for those people. And that's growth mode. But if you want to scale, for every dollar going out, you want 10 coming in, right? And so the best way that we can do that is hire entry-level salespeople at around a $50,000 base, and then make their quota and their on-target earnings close to 100,000 if your price points support that, as an entry-level salesperson, getting them to think that, oh, I can make six figures in 6-7 months. If that's possible, more people will take a shot, and then it's up to you to get them to be successful. But what I'm getting at is, we did an outbound remote and it was okay. It was a growth mode. Then we moved in office, and I have these entry-level salespeople starting with no clue how to make a cold call. And we were talking, like earlier I mentioned, don't hire this type of rep. I made a decision to hire a type of rep that I never would have hired before, and it was turning out pretty good. But anyways, it took about 6 months. So we were negative 140,000 total at the worst. And then just last month, which would have been our 7th month in operations, we saw a profitability from a monthly recurring revenue standpoint. So again, what we're tracking is all money going out to the sales team. And then on a monthly, this is not including your paid in full deals from last month or the month before that, because that was last month's revenue. Paid in full, that doesn't come again until next year. So on your monthly recurring revenue, so if your package is $199, okay, if I sell 10 of those, that's $2,000 in recurring revenue per month, assuming that no one churns. So my salespeople cost around $5,000 at a minimum, just from a base salary standpoint. That's not including commission and tech stack. So how many sales does it take for them to be profitable? And we finally just achieved that in month number 7. And, we still have to deal with some of the churn and seeing when and where it will stabilize. But it looks like we will be profitable from a year standpoint in month number 11. So it's really exciting.
Nice.
Yeah.
And did that align with the expectations that you had set out in the beginning with your CEO?
No, there were.
What were your projections?
So the projection was, he hired me asking, okay, I want to get to a point, and this is the way I heard it, right? This is what he said, and what I heard were two different things. What he said was, I want to sell $1.8 million in recurring revenue. I was like, okay, cool. I can build that team. All it would take is hiring 7 salespeople to close 12 deals a month. I can build that. And in my head, I'm like, I can't wait to build that. And in his head, he's thinking January 1st, a month after he hires me, is when my salespeople are going to start averaging 12 deals a month, right? Like, that was never spoken about. And so his expectation moving into 2023, because he hired me in 2022, was $1.8 million in revenue. Just
for the year 2023.
Yeah. And then I hire my first salesperson. And my motto with hiring is hire slow, fire fast. If someone's not a good fit after 30 days. I believe in that more so.
And how long into 2023 before you made your first hire?
I extended the offer on December. Funnily enough, like, nobody moves around Christmas time. I got pretty lucky with this candidate. They were a VP of sales at a company that was kind of taking a turn down. This person had also received monies coming from elsewhere. They wanted to be a part of building a product from the ground up and didn't really care too much about money. It was perfect for me because I needed that type of hire, right? But he joined on January 3rd. So I made first hire.
First rep right at the start of the year.
Yeah. Got it. And so the next rep after that, I hired in April.
And these were remote reps.
Remote.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay. Next rep in April. And then you moved to Virginia and opened an office in June, July. When was that? Of 2023.
We opened the office I came and moved into the office on July 15th, and the office, I think, was open on July 1st. Yeah.
Got it.
So I had 2 salespeople start with me on not July 15th, July 17th. And they're still here.
Great. So what does 2024 look like? What are you going to hit that 1.8 million this year?
No, because after we saw how long it takes to ramp somebody, we know that as an entry level salesperson, if you stay in as an account executive level 1 and you close 8 deals per month, that is scale mode. $1 going out, $10 coming in eventually after ramping, right? And so I'm okay with salespeople staying there if they're okay with staying there, right? We all want top performers, but not everyone is a top performer. So people staying at account executive level 1, if they're cool with that. They're like, I want a low stress job with low expectations. I'll take that, right? They're going to receive that pay with a $90,000-ish, $95,000 on target earning. Account executive 2, their quota goes up, but so does their pay, as you saw, by about $20,000 a year. At a minimum, their on target earnings become close to 120. And so, yes, if I can move people from account executive level 1 to 2 to 3, sure, achieving 1.8 million with 5 or 6 salespeople, that becomes possible. But if we look at it from a cash flow model, money going out, money coming in, I could hire 100 account executive level 1s that are closing 8 deals a month, and that is massive profit. Versus taking a chance on hiring all these account executive level 3s, burning a bunch of cash and seeing who fits. The beauty of the program is as soon as you're successful in your role, you're eligible for promotion. And then you see, do I really have the pipeline to support that increase in quota? And am I good enough to close? If the answer is no, maybe you sit tight for a while. No, we won't achieve 1.8 million, but what we will achieve is, do the math here real quick. Sorry, I have the number, but 900,000 with account executive level 1s and that's at a minimum. That's assuming that we're only closing 7 deals per month, but our average is higher than that right now. So close to 900,000 in revenue in 2024, maybe $1 million depending on performance.
All right. So last snippet before we wrap up here. When your expectations that you set don't become reality when you thought that they would, what do you do with your CEO?
Yeah. Big. No, I'm kidding. I'm just kidding. So that's why it's so important in the interview process. Like I was done 5 years ago working with people that weren't fun to work with. So when I partner with a company, and Devyn, this is what made it so easy to work with you and take a chance on leaving Grubhub to come to mind, was I want to work with somebody that assumes the best intent in me, and I will assume the best intent in you, because we are all people, and it's not a matter of if I'm going to let you down, it's when. We're going to make a mistake. But if I make a mistake and I have to second guess how I came across to you because you're assuming the worst intent, I don't want to be in that environment. And so my advice might not be applicable to everybody, because maybe you are the type of person that just wants to go for the director role and you don't mind working for an a-hole. That's not me. So during the interview process, we flew out a couple times and met together and got a really good understanding of who we are, how we operate. And so we knew there's going to be mistakes, and I'm going to assume that you were doing your best and we'll never make the same mistake twice, right? So I was in a fortunate position where expectations were set. They were nowhere close to being hit, but there's still a story to be told about why. And were we telling the truth the whole time, or were we blowing smoke? And I do report to the type of person where it doesn't matter how good of a performer you are. If you're a liar, they'll see you later every day of the week. So my advice there might not be applicable to everyone, but finding good people to do good business with that you have aligned morals with would probably be a good start.
Yeah. And then I would say communicate frequently, right? Communicate often. If there's a change to the plan, understand why, be able to explain it, be upfront about it. Like you said, be honest. And, that's the thing I think that people that want to maybe pursue leadership or even start their own business, right? It's a first step that some people are afraid to make, which is creating a plan, like a realistic plan, right? Like, if I do this, here's what should happen. And every good business creates a plan or creates a budget going into a new year, right? Every business that's in operation does that. Maybe someone will listen to this and be like, bigger businesses, I should say. Small businesses, generally not. They just kind of are, running the business instead of working on the business. But bigger businesses create a budget every year. They create a plan every year. And so for salespeople, or in your situation with your CEO, it's like, here's the plan. And this is if everything comes together according to the plan, then we should do this, right? And then what happens? Reality happens, right? And everything that's in the plan doesn't always go according to plan. Actually, things rarely go to plan, right? And so communication through those changes, pivots, whatever you want to call them, I think is critical to maintaining relationships with your boss, your boss's boss, the CEO, in your case, business owner, whoever it may be. And like you said, getting to know one another and being clear that, hey, this is the plan. And if everything goes according to plan, this will be the outcome. And if it doesn't go according to plan, there's going to be a different outcome, right?
Yeah.
So don't be afraid to create the plan, and don't beat yourself up if things don't go according to plan, because they rarely do. Just be ready to roll with the punches, make the best out of whatever does happen throughout the year. Maybe you beat the plan. That's a great outcome, right? So, Jared, again, thanks for joining today. Find him on LinkedIn, JaredOllmann. That's the best way to get connected with you and ask any follow-up questions.
That's it. Yeah.
All right, Jared, appreciate you coming on. See you soon.
Thanks, Devyn.